It's not about me. They have no idea what it's like to be burdened with this and feeling like I'm watching my country disintegrate. And if I don't stand up and do something when I'm able to, I just don't know that I could live with myself.
You're not just a meteorologist, you're interviewing some pretty heavy hitters here. Gail King, what's your reaction to what she said there?
When I hear fake news, I never think that it applies to us.
I just think that it's a shame because over the last couple of months, I've seen personally that there have been stories that CBS has run that were proven to be fake.
One of those stories that Project Veritas actually witnessed here.
Cherry Health now admitting that staffers were in the line of cars presented to the CBS network.
Well, we knew they were coming. We had no clue that we were going to have to do fake patients.
We are supposed to be the people that bring light to corruption. So basically, they're going to use the power of all of Viacom CBS brands.
Is this journalism?
I don't think that this is journalism at all. I think that this is propaganda being pushed on people.
Why would you do that? Basically, that's the most selfish thing I've ever seen.
I was hoping there would be a change.
No,
because
there's not gonna be. The only change is going to be, on our weekend weather person. That's the only change.
Your reaction to what he said?
It's hard to hear that.
You're a wife and a mother of 4. How do they feel about this?
They are so supportive. I'm so blessed to have them. They support me 100%. We put our faith and hope and trust in God. That's what we do.
So you're going to go on there and say that, and you think that they're going to say, oh, you know what, she's right. We're going to go ahead and change those now because she said it on the air. You really thought that. The only change is going to be, on our weekend weather person. That's the only change.
So on the heels of Ivory Hecker blowing the whistle on her Fox affiliate in Texas, she's inspired another whistleblower, this time from CBS Detroit, to come forward with recordings and a story to tell about the bias and what she views as discrimination in her news station here in Michigan.
April Moss, I'm a meteorologist, but I'm also a multimedia journalist. So sometimes I was a fill-in host for Community Connect, which airs on the CW morning show on Saturdays.
You said on the air that you were going to come forward to talk about discrimination.
So all of our policies are passed down from CBS New York, and there's just a blanket statement policy for all CBS affiliate stations. When COVID broke out in March of 2020, everyone was sent home except for the essential employees. So there was, again, less than 20 of us with permission to enter the building. Now, I worked in the building throughout all of COVID, and then we slowly transitioned to working from home 1 day a week.
General manager's name is?
Brian Watson.
Brian Watson.
I felt that, okay, well, I don't want to lose my job. I will comply with weekly tests so that I can keep my job. CBS actually started to ask for access to the data from the lab, Pixel LabCorp, where we were getting our COVID testing, which was voluntary, but I, of course, checked no. They do not need to know my personal COVID testing information. That to me felt like just an overreach, but I wanted to keep my job. So I continued to weekly test. Governor Gretchen Whitmer just made sure that the mask mandate was dropped for indoor areas. So I requested through HR, I said, I do not want to comply anymore with weekly testing.
So you spoke with Patrick Bynum, and he responded. He's the Senior Vice President Human Resources for CBS New York. EEOC guidance, which permits the use of a COVID test to evaluate employees' presence in the workplace. Essential employees are not required to disclose their vaccination status. Essential employees who choose to disclose will still be required to follow protocols. Until July 6th, our current policy protocols remain in place.
So basically what that is it's saying that, hey, you're an essential employee. We really want you to get vaccinated. In fact, we'll even pay you. So you're setting a standard within the workplace already of segregating coworkers, and I should not be discriminated against.
So many people in your position would probably have just resigned or done something else. you chose to come to Project Veritas.
This issue is not just about me. I'm watching our whole nation suffer because they're put underneath these policies that are enacted by corporations. And this is a human rights issue. And every American and every person on earth has the right to breathe fresh air. And to segregate somebody is completely inhumane.
So it's that segregation of the employees at CBS that is what you are speaking up against.
Right, and as an on-air personality, it's very obvious to the viewers, wow, she's never in the studio. She's always at her house working
People
from home.
know, based upon the fact that you're home,
Yeah.
what your vaccine status might be.
And everybody at work, oh wow, April's not allowed in the building.
And
I
that could
guess
be
it's
construed
because-
as a medical information about you.
Right. It's an unfortunate thing, James, but it's not just happening to me, it's happening all across the world. And I really felt like I had gone through all of the correct channels within our organization to try to amend this to no avail.
Can you tell me a little about what I'm looking at here?
So these are emails that come through from corporate. We are using the power of our brands to encourage viewers to get the vaccine.
This is CBS corporate.
Yes, Viacom CBS.
Vaccine hesitancy. We've seen this term before with Facebook whistleblower.
Right.
Tell me about what that means.
So basically, they're going to use the power of all of Viacom CBS brands. It's a huge conglomeration. But one example that they're showing here is MTV and Comedy Central Brazil teamed up with Facebook and Instagram to launch an important social media campaign.
Is this news? Is this journalism?
I don't think that this is journalism at all. I think that this is propaganda being pushed on people.
What is the most egregious example that you've seen personally at CBS Detroit of this lack of journalism that you speak of?
Probably the most recent has been when we've done the Community Connect show. We want to talk about what's going on in Detroit and around the community. It's supposed to be an upbeat type of lighthearted piece. But over the last year, we've had some political figures. As I've watched some of those interviews, it made me a little bit sad because the people are recognizing that elected officials are not making decisions in the people's best interest. And as a journalist, I feel responsible to be able to bring these questions to light. The most recent was when I interviewed Dr. Khaldun. She was a major critical person in the vaccine rollout here in Detroit. And I was really looking forward to asking her some questions about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines.
So this is you interviewing Dr. Khaldun and not asking softball questions.
Can you just clarify really quick about you said they prevent hospitalizations, but we know that there have been many studies showing that people have been hospitalized after the vaccination. What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. So when you look at the clinical trials, and all of them are different. So it's really important that you can't just put all of the clinical trials for all 3 vaccines into one and make assumptions. But in every trial, what they showed was that there is high efficacy when it comes to people who received the vaccine and whether or not they had COVID-19 related symptoms, hospitalizations, or deaths. I think it's also really important that people understand there are some people who have had reactions after a vaccine, but those reactions are not necessarily directly related to the vaccine.
This is a brand new medical product that's being released. And I understand that, it was important. We need to get our economy back up and running. This was a good thing, right? But people need to have informed consent. And so I felt like it was a very valid question to ask. Hey, can you tell me, Dr. Khaldun, what are the long-term studies that have been done regarding safety and efficacy of these vaccines? I was trying to ask some more pointed questions, and I really wanted to find out because she basically said early in the segment that nobody had adverse reactions, and I knew that was false. So I was trying to have her clarify that for me. And as I was speaking, my producer in my ear was saying, move on to the next question.
Really?
Did not want me to talk about.
What was that producer's name? If you're uncomfortable saying it, it's okay. So the person at the station was telling you to move on from this line of questioning because they, in your opinion or from your perspective, they didn't want you to talk about this.
Right, but this was almost like you're not allowed to ask real questions about the vaccine. Just ask her who inspires her and those types of things. And I felt like as a journalist, there's no way I can have somebody who has the knowledge that she has regarding vaccines and is talking about them and showing how she's already demonstrated that she's gotten one. And it would have been careless of me as a journalist not to ask those questions. So then there was a phone call later after this was taped, and that producer asked me, I was really surprised when you asked that question, when you threw that question in, because that wasn't in the approved questions to ask her.
This tape from Gayle King. She's national CBS.
Mm-hmm.
Gayle King, co-host CBS This Morning. Let's take a look at this.
In today's day and age where it seems like the methodology of journalism is under attack right now. You have a lot of voices out there saying there's fake news. How do you encourage those people watching today to stay objective in their journalism, to be able to bring people truth?
Well, when I hear fake news, I never think it applies to us. So I don't find myself, oh my God, they called us fake news, because I think they're not talking about us at CBS.
Mm-hmm. You're not just a meteorologist. You're interviewing some pretty heavy hitters here. Gayle King, what's your reaction to what she said there?
I just think that it's a shame, because over the last couple of months, I've seen personally that there have been stories that CBS has run that were proven to be fake. I'm watching our whole country get frustrated with journalism today and the media today, because they're seeing that it's not truth what they're always putting out. We
have one of those stories that Project Veritas actually witnessed here in Michigan. You're at one of your affiliates here. This was B-roll this was not a real COVID testing site. You're telling me you're 100% certain that CBS News Corporation, National, staged a fake event. They faked the news, they faked the reality, and broadcasted that to all of their audience last Friday on CBS This Morning.
100%, absolutely.
Apparently, the news crew wanted more people in the line because they knew it was scheduled.
Well, we knew they were coming. We had no clue that we were going to have to, do fake patients.
Gotcha. And did she tell you guys, hey, you're not actually getting tested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she did. It was just to make it look busy for the news.
They also can't expand testing because of recent staffing cuts.
Cherry Health has laid off about 25% of our staff.
Wow. And at a time like this.
Exactly.
The governor says she may further open the economy region by region if the data shows it's safe. Now, putting Michigan back to work won't make up for the roughly $3 billion the state estimates it'll lose because of the pandemic.
It always seems to go back to the testing. Thank you very much. That was Adriana Diaz reporting.
They were staging the news, and you're telling really everyone right now that these sorts of events and the events that you've seen have encouraged you to go public as opposed to simply resigning. Now, we're going to reach out to your team for comment, but some might say, or even they might say, well, you went off script. There was an approved thing, you didn't do it. That's not your role at CW. When they say those sorts of statements, what's your response to them?
I have to listen to my conscience, and I have to listen to what I know is best for the people. And so I understand, and I'm very grateful for being employed by CBS for 9 years. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that it has given me. But there comes a time where you have to take a stand for something, and you have to say, I owe the public, it's a duty as a journalist, I owe them to ask some real questions about the safety and efficacy, especially because I knew that they were going to begin to encourage women and children.
You claim CBS is not just biased in their reporting, but they're also extremely selective with who they allow to have on their platform, a voice on their platform.
He said to me, well, this isn't a political show, April. This is, just Community Connect. This is supposed to be light. And my response back was, well, I understand it might not be a political show, but we have political figures on here. If you're going to have political figures on your show, then you owe it to the public to ask some real questions, because the public is watching and they're not happy.
Speaking of political figures, the issue involving Candace Owens, I think it was, and then but also Governor Whitmer. Could you explain that dynamic at local CBS here in Detroit?
Yeah. So basically, when I knew that I was hosting this show for International Women's Month, I was basically asked, "Hey, give us your feedback on who would you like to have on the show? Give us some ideas." So one of the people that I mentioned was, "Oh, it would be amazing to have Candace Owens. I'd love to interview her, and she is somebody that I admire and respect." And the response that came back was, "Well, she's too political. We're not going to have her on." But instead, they had Dr. Caldoun on. So it's one of those things where I feel like you can't say that Candace Owens is too political, but somebody who's in charge of the vaccine rollout under Whitmer's organization is not political.
And not ask tough questions of these political officials.
Right. My big concern in all of this, by not standing up, James, and just walking away and saying, okay, I do know that there are people within our organization who definitely know that CBS has a slant, and it slants more to the left. And, anybody who's awake right now knows that. And this is why I feel like we're in the problematic time in our country's history that we're at, is that no longer is true journalism being executed anymore.
And you see that day to day.
I feel like it is one of the greatest crimes really in history right now, because if we are shaping the American public's mind, then we need to be seeking truth. And every single journalist who goes to school for journalism, the number one thing is integrity, honesty, seeking truth. We are supposed to be the people that bring light to corruption and subjects. And if we're seeing elected officials and other people in power and they're not getting questioned, that's a problem, or they're getting easy questions asked to them. And so I feel like the media is responsible. I'm not the only one this is affecting, and I realize that I could be somebody who could be able to hopefully affect change for others. And that has been my biggest heart's cry. It's not about me. They have no idea what it's like to be burdened with this and feeling like I'm watching my country disintegrate. And if I don't stand up and do something when I'm able to, I just don't know that I could live with myself.
That's why you're doing this.
Yeah.
I have a phone call here from this man who called you today. And
yeah.
Why would you do that? Basically, that's the most selfish thing I've ever seen in 36 years working there, without even a close second. Because you don't give a crap about anybody else, and like if you get terminated, which you might, and then the burden is going to place on other people, you couldn't care less. It's just all about April Moss. I mean, I'm going to recommend that you get terminated. I'm going to recommend that. I'm not going to stand up for you. Because that was as blatant as anything I've ever seen.
I was hoping there would be a change.
No,
because
not going to. The only change is going to be, on our weekend weather person. That's the only change.
It's hard, it's hard to hear that, because I never would intentionally try to hurt somebody. Anybody who knows me knows that. And I really do like my boss. I think he's one of the best.
This man right here.
I do.
You like him. You respect him.
I do. And he fought for me really hard with corporate. And he agreed with me. And as much as I don't want to hurt anybody, I also see the whole world hurting right now. I see the whole world hurting. And frankly, I was out of options. I had gone through every channel to try to do things the right way. I went through HR all the way up to New York to no avail.
Yes.
So, really, I had no other choice.
A choiceless choice. That's what we've heard. Most people don't do what you do. Most people just don't choose this path. But you're choosing it. Yeah. You're a wife and a mother of 4. How do they feel about this?
They are so supportive. I'm so blessed to have them. They support me 100%.
You could lose your job over this.
Yeah.
Are they worried? Are you worried?
You know what? We put our faith and hope and trust in God. That's what we do.